Hey, it's Alan, and I just wanted to let you know that you can now listen to the ongoing history of new music early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Hey, who doesn't love a good list? Even before the internet was choked with listicles, my love of lists goes back to at least 1977, when I bought a paperback book called The Book of Lists, written by David Walachinsky and David and Amy Wallace. It was a huge bestseller, spawning the Book of Lists 2, the Book of Lists 3, and the Book of Lists Canadian edition. And I have all of them on my shelf in my home office. So let's take a look here. I'm just going to open to a random page. First of these volumes, page 315. 6 positions for sexual intercourse in order of preference. 15-year-old me must have really loved that. Page 75. 13 drops for the working hangman. This goes on to list how much rope you need to hang people of various weights for a clean break of the neck. Turns out that I would need a drop of exactly 8 feet 0 inches, which is, I guess, good to know. What else here? Chapter 9. This is called Arty Facts, and it features lists about music. Well, these don't seem very relevant anymore. Rudy Valley's 10 best popular orchestras of all time. 15 recording artists with records that have sold 1 million copies or more. Wow, that's out of date. This is fun. Dr. Demento's worst song titles of all time. Number 1 is I Scream, You Scream, We All Scream for Ice Cream. It's probably outdated too. But it's funny that I've looked through all these books, and there doesn't seem to be a list for the 10 greatest one-hit wonders, which seems like an obvious omission. And there certainly isn't a list for the 10 biggest alt-rock one-hit wonders of all time. Then again, we didn't really have alt-rock back then, did we? Well, let's fix that, shall we?
This is the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross.
Hello again, I'm Alan Cross, and this is Chapter 5 of a 6-part series on the biggest alt-rock one-hit wonders since alt-rock began, with the punk rock explosion of 1976. This master list was compiled in February 2026, so it's a nice way to commemorate alt-rock and what can be considered its 50th birthday. Let's run through the criteria one more time. The standard industry definition of a one-hit wonder is an artist who managed to place one and only one song inside the Billboard Top 40 on the Hot 100 singles chart. That's what the American industry uses. But since there are literally dozens of people living outside the United States, that's just not going to do. There are also different kinds of charts that keep score for different types of music. There are rock charts, modern rock charts, sales charts, iTunes charts, and so on. So sorting out true one-hit wonders is very difficult. So here's what I did using methods that don't require a quantum computer and Skynet-level AI. I created a list of about 100 songs using various radio airplay charts from over the decades and put them into a spreadsheet. Then I looked up the number of Spotify plays and YouTube views for each song. From there, the spreadsheet was sent to Walter the mathematician, who created a logarithmic scale ranking the one-hit wonderness of each song on a scale of 1 to 10. And from there, it was just easy to chop things off at 50. 50 songs from 50 years. Through the first 4 episodes, we've gone from songs 50 to 11, and that means we are ready for the top 10. If you've been following along, there may have been a few surprises along the way, and you may have been trying to guess what songs will finish in the uppermost regions of this list. And now we're going to find out. Number 10 was a big surprise to me. I did not expect to see this song in the top 10. It comes from 2003. It was the first single from the band's first album, and in fact was track 1 on the album. Not only was it a number 1 song on various alt-rock charts, it also made its way into the American Top 40, reaching as high as number 16. Sales are somewhere beyond 2 million, and it helped the band win a bunch of awards for their debut album. And the band is still together and performing for fans. But they're on this list because since 2003, they have never, ever been able to have a song anywhere as big as this. Now, if you're a fan, you can probably name plenty of songs, but for the alt-rock generalist and alternative radio airplay, this is it. 514.5 million Spotify plays and 70 million views on YouTube. So that's a total of 585 million, giving it a one-hit wonder ranking of 8.4 out of 10. This is Trapped with Headstrong.
Back off, I'll take you on. Headstrong to take on anyone. I know that you are wrong. Headstrong, we're headstrong. Back off, I'll take you on.
California's Trapped and Headstrong, a song recorded in Vancouver by Canadian producer Garth. A strange inclusion here, given that since 1995, they've sold almost 3 million records, but the numbers do not lie. This is a one-hit wonder band, although a very profitable one, thanks to constant radio airplay and inclusion in a couple of video games. There have been issues, though. The song was once referred to as essential divorced dad rock. Ultimate Guitar magazine rated the riff as the 4th worst of all time, and the band's sound has been described as plagiaristic. And it doesn't get any better from there. The band has used its social media accounts to take on things and people it doesn't agree with. It started with shots against the Kardashians, which is, fair game, but then it veered toward homophobic attacks. Singer Chris Taylor Brown became increasingly pro-Trump and pro-MAGA after 2016. Brown then went after people who didn't think Trump's firing of FBI Director James Comey was the right thing to do. He claimed that institutional racism does not exist, putting him in the anti-woke, anti-DEI crowd. He defended the Unite to Right rally, saying that white privilege does not exist. He pushed the story that COVID was a Chinese virus and that George Floyd had it coming to him. And then they aligned themselves with the Proud Boys, inviting them to a show in Dallas. Facebook deleted their account on grounds of hate speech. Its Twitter account was suspended after Brown defended, get this, statutory rape. And all this led to a petition to have Trapped's music left off a Tony Hawk DVD. So things have been, problematic. Let's leave that behind and move to number 9. The singer of this band has also said and done some things that have not sat well. Gabriel Kerner came out of West Germany in the early 1980s. With the stage name Nina, you know where this is going now, she fronted a band of the same name. In 1983, she recorded a single called 99 Luftballons, which was inspired by watching some balloons being released at a Rolling Stone show in West Berlin in the summer of 1982. One of the members of the band wondered what would happen if they floated into communist East Germany and then were mistaken for some kind of nuclear attack. The song tells of some kind of nuclear confrontation that results in widespread destruction, leaving a single red balloon behind. Despite its peppy sound, this is not a happy song. It is a serious anti-war anthem. The original, sung in German, was a hit. It was then decided to record an English version with lyrics that were close to the original German, but not quite exactly bang on. For example, the literal translation of the German title is 99 air balloons, but that became 99 red balloons for the English recording. Both versions were hits, making it kind of a double one-hit wonder. Both versions hit number 1 in countries around the world. Sales of the single have approached somewhere around 3 million, and it was one of the biggest new wave singles of the early 1980s. Nina continued to do well in Germany for a couple of years with some platinum charting singles, but in the rest of the world, nothing beyond this.
99 red balloons floating in the summer sky. Panic bells, it's red alert. There's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on
Number 9 on this list of the top alt-rock one-hit wonders, Nina and 99 Red Balloons, 603 million Spotify plays and 1.8 million YouTube views. So that's 604.7 million, and its one-hit wonder power ranking is 8.46 out of 10. Now, that does not include Goldfinger's 2 recordings of the song. The first was in 2000, which was an alt-rock radio hit on its own, and then there was a 2022 re-recording that featured Travis Barker on drums. But back to Nina for just a second. When COVID hit, Nina was furious that some of her concerts were canceled by edict of the German government. She was very outspoken about that, and she would later rail against COVID restrictions, doing things like holding what she called a party for the unvaccinated. You can probably imagine how that landed in Germany, a country that really loves its rules. Today, she's back to touring just like in the pre-COVID days. Number 8 is another cover, and it's another case of being pigeonholed by being famous for performing someone else's song. Alien Ant Farm was formed in Riverside, California in 1996. They cheekily called their 1999 debut album Greatest Hits, and it contained a song listed as Slick Thief, which was actually a cover of Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. 2 years later, they released Anthology, and it included a re-recording of Slick Thief, but this time under its original title. It was a hit in the era of nu metal, reaching the top 10 in close to 20 countries. It reached number 15 in Canada, number 23 in the US, and number 3 in the UK, and it was a monster on the alternative charts, which was fantastic, right? Well, unfortunately for Alien Ant Farm, they've never become known for any other song except amongst their hardcore fans, which is okay because they've made a ton of money from Smooth Criminal, right? Well, yes and no. In the US, radio airplay rules say that only the composer gets royalties when a song is played on the radio. So that means every time Alien Ant Farm's Smooth Criminal gets played on the radio in America, all the royalties flow not to Alien Ant Farm, but to Michael Jackson's estate. Now, there were different rules in other countries, including Canada, the UK, and in fact most of the rest of the world, where the artist covering the song also gets some radio airplay royalties. But since America is the biggest market in the world, all plays there earn them almost nothing. Fortunately, Alien Ant Farm gets cash from Spotify plays, which as of February 2026 are at 613 million. YouTube videos are way far behind at 381,000. But we have a consumption total of 613.5 million, which means a one-hit wonder power rating of a whopping 8.48 out of 10. Alien Ant Farm. Unless you're a longtime hardcore fan of the band, that's the only song that you can name for them. Here's another band who had an insanely popular song, but had to share songwriting with an even bigger artist. And this is what I have for number 7. Crazy Town has a history that dates back to 1995. After a slow start, they hit with their 1999 album, The Gift of Game. In late 2000, the third single from the album exploded. Things started at alt-rock radio, which they often do, where it reached number 1 on those charts. And by March 2001, it was a number 1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 in America. It was number 1 in Austria, Greece, Germany, Norway, Poland, Romania, Switzerland, number 3 in Canada, number 3 in the UK, number 4 in Australia, number 1 on metal charts, rock charts, and dance charts. The single and the album sold in the millions. But here's the thing. Because the song was based on a sample taken from the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Pretty Little Ditty from the Mother's Milk album, Crazy Town had to share songwriting credits with them. The Chili Peppers have done nothing with this song except cash the checks. And those checks continue to be big. 642 million Spotify plays, 299,000 YouTube views for a total of 642-ish million. That's good for a one-hit wonderness rating of 8.57 out of 10.
You'll make your legs shake, you make me go crazy. Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Come my lady, you're my pretty baby, I'll make your legs shake, you make me go crazy.
Number 7 on this list of the biggest alt-rock one-hit wonders from the last 50 years. That's Crazy Town and Butterfly. But like everyone else on this list, they were unable to replicate that success. There were maybe a dozen lineup changes. Co-founder Shifty Shellshock went off the rails into a life of addiction that even landed him on TV shows like Celebrity Rehab and Sober House. There were arrests for possession of cocaine, assault, and driving impaired. There was at least one incident of him drugging himself into a coma. And then on June 24th, 2024, he was found dead at his home in L.A. It was an accidental overdose of coke, fentanyl, and meth. Meanwhile, Adam Brevin, the band's DJ, found himself the subject of a misconduct allegation at an LA goth club. He ran the club, too. But it's not all bad. Crazy Town's co-founder, Epic Mazur, has done much better, working as a composer of scores and sound design for movies. Coming next, another one-hit wonder whose singer has gone on to all kinds of amazing things. Things in music, but things you wouldn't expect. We're up to number 6 on this list of the all-time alt-rock one-hit wonders. Our starting point is 1976, the year of the original punk rock explosion. So that means 2026, the year I put this together, marks 50 years of alt-rock, so nice anniversary. Number 6 is a really interesting case. It's an example of how one song can set you up for a lifetime. And this band did it with the first single from their one and only album. A former Jehovah's Witness named Greg Alexander and a former child actress, Danielle Brisbois, formed New Radicals in Los Angeles. And if they set out to write the most radio-friendly album of the 1990s, they certainly came very close. The record was called Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too. It was just the two of them, along with a bunch of studio musicians, with songs recorded between 1993 and 1998. That first single was inspired by Greg's travels around the world when he was touched by all the injustice he saw. His thinking was, I'm going to write something that is uplifting and encouraging. Oh, and I'm also going to base part of it on a dream where Joni Mitchell came to me to talk about music. You Get What You Give was released on November 3rd, 1998, and we've been hearing it ever since. Like every other song on this list, its ascent started at alt-rock radio, and in Canada, it crossed over to the singles charts, where it hit number 1. It was also number 1 in New Zealand, number 5 in the UK, where it sold 1.2 million copies. However, it didn't chart all that well anywhere else. For all the song's current ubiquity, you'll be surprised to learn that it barely scraped into the US top 40, stalling at number 36, although it was a top 10 track on the alternative charts. But there was something about the song. It just won't go away. It's always there in the background, popping up with regularity long after New Radicals stopped being a thing in 1999. It was in commercials, movie trailers, TV shows, various soundtracks. It was in the TV show Glee, and it's been sampled by at least 3 times and covered 25 times. As of February 2026, You Get What You Give has been streamed on Spotify 673 million times, which is more than enough to offset the paltry 220,000 YouTube views. Walter the mathematician assigns it a one-hit wonder power rating of 8.65 out of 10.
You got the music in you. Don't let go. You got the music in you. One dance left. That's what it's gonna pull through. Don't give up. You got a reason to live.
You're probably wondering whatever happened to the 2 members of New Radicals. Well, let's start with Danielle Brisbois. Like I said, she was a child actor who appeared on All in the Family when she was very, very young. She also starred in the Broadway production of Annie. After New Radicals died, she put out 2 solo albums, but spent most of her time as a songwriter and working with Greg Alexander, her partner, on various projects. As for Greg, he got tired of the rock grind and walked away from absolutely everything. But he has since written songs for Rod Stewart, Hanson, The Struts, Kaiser Chiefs, Enrique Iglesias, Melanie C. of the Spice Girls, and many others, including a song for Santana that won a Grammy Award in 2003. Remember the song Murder on the Dance Floor from the movie Salt that was performed by Sophie Ellis-Bextor? Greg Alexander. He's written music for film. A song for the movie Begin Again was nominated for an Oscar in 2015. And despite offers for a reunion, New Radicals have come together again only twice. The first was in 2021 when he, Danielle, and a group of hired musicians performed at Joe Biden's inauguration. The song is also cited in Joe Biden's autobiography in the chapter on the death of his son, Beau. The second was in 2024 when they re-recorded a couple of songs, but not You Get What You Give. So don't worry about Greg and Danielle. They're doing just fine. Now, if you like that story, you'll love this one for the song at number 5. Semisonic was formed in Minneapolis in 1993, and the head guy was singer Dan Wilson. Things were rough at the beginning, but in 1998, they finished an album called Feeling Strangely Fine. The first single was Closing Time, which, and I love this, was recorded at Seedy Underbelly Studio in Minneapolis. That was honestly its name. Dan came up with the song as a way to end the band's set just before last call, so it's time to go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. It was the first of 3 singles, but the only one from Semisonic that anyone remembers. And even then, it was a modest hit when it first came out. Yes, number 1 on the alt-rock charts, and yes, it won a Grammy for Best Rock Song in 1999, but elsewhere it was lucky to reach the top 25 on the mainstream top 40 charts. But just like You Get What You Give, this song won't quit. It's been featured in a bunch of movies and TV shows and commercials, and it always seems to be popping up somewhere, even after all these years. 555 million Spotify plays and 137 million YouTube views. That's a grand total of 692 million. That gives it a one-hit wonder power ranking of 8.70 out of 10.
I know I want to take me home, take me home. Closing time for you to go out.
So where is Semisonic? Well, after one more album, they broke up. But don't feel bad for singer Dan Wilson. He co-wrote Someone Like You with Adele, and I don't need to tell you what kind of hit that was. He's also worked on songs with Pink, Celine Dion, Halsey, Weezer, Panic at the Disco, Mitski, My Morning Jacket, country star Chris Stapleton, and yes, Taylor Swift. Bass player John Munson continues to work in music, collaborating with various artists, but not to the degree of his buddy Dan. And drummer Jacob Schlichter wrote a book called How to Be a Rock Star. Now, I know I'm going to take heat for including this song at number 4 in this all-time alt-rock one-hit wonders list because someone's inevitably going to start yelling about some of their other songs. And you know what? You would be correct. But unless you are a serious fan or from Scotland or the UK, you probably won't be able to name any other song than this one. Throw the R Away, I'm on My Way, King of the Road, Let's Get Married. All singles with extremely minor regional success. But this one, a monster. The Proclaimers are two twin brothers, Craig and Charlie Reid. They started making music together in 1983. Their first album arrived in 1987 and was largely ignored outside of Scotland, except by a couple of North American alt-rock radio stations. The big record was the second one, Sunshine on Leith, which came out the following year. Platinum record in the UK and a gold record in Canada, the US, and Australia. And the first single, well, you probably already know what I'm talking about.
But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm walking.
The Proclaimers with I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles. Not the duo's only single, but the only one that has stuck in popular culture. And get this, 997 million Spotify plays, plus 138,000 YouTube views. That earns it a one-hit wonder power rating of 9.29 out of 10. So, we are now down to the top 3 all-time alt-rock one-hit wonders. All 3 have consumption numbers beyond 1 billion. What might they be? I have a feeling 2 of them will shock you. Okay, enough with the clickbait. Back in a second with the results. We're down to the final 3 on this list of the biggest alt-rock one-hit wonders of the last 50 years. And at number 3 is a song that I did not expect to be this big. If you were around in the late 90s, you'll remember it as a time when rock was flailing. There's no other way to put it. Record labels were throwing anything at the wall, hoping that something would stick. And this is where we find this band from Long Island. Out front was singer and guitarist Brendan Brown. In the back, his brother Peter on drums. A couple of friends fill out the lineup. They played some gigs in and around New York City and cobbled together enough money to make an indie record. That record was then peddled to various record labels, including Columbia, who gave them a multi-album deal. A self-titled major label debut record was released in the summer of 2000, and the first single was a hit out of the gate. Alt-rock radio just loved it and pushed it up those charts. The Brits pushed it all the way up to number 2 on the mainstream singles chart, helping this single sell more than 3 million copies in the UK alone. And remember, this is the era of Napster. It was top 5 in half a dozen other countries. Total worldwide sales sit at somewhere around 5 million. As of February 2026, it's been heard on Spotify 1.02 billion times, but viewed only 139,000 times on YouTube. No matter, its one-hit wonder power rating is 9.39. Would you believe that it's this song?
'Cause I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Yeah, I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby, with me.
An alt-rock one-hit wonder in Spotify's Billion Streams Club. That's Wheatus and Teenage Dirtbag. I mean, I know I did not see this coming. Can you name the only other Wheatus song that got any kind of traction? It was from the same album. Anybody? It was a cover of Erasure's A Little Respect. Now, Wheatus has never stopped being a thing. There have been at least 4 other albums, although there have been plenty of attrition in the lineup. There were more than 24 ex-members of Wheatus. And again, this proves that you just have to write one big hit and you could be set for life. What do we have for number 2? I kept waiting for this song to come up in the research, and when it did, wow. The group is from California. They were born in 1994 and are usually a straight-ahead rock band with tinges of nu metal. Each of their first 3 albums either went gold or platinum in various countries, including Canada, the US, the UK, and France. The second was the biggest, going top 10 in Canada, the US, and France. The first single from that record was pretty heavy, although in retrospect, having Ian Watkins of the Welsh band Lost Prophets on guest vocals was a very bad idea. He's the notorious pedophile who was jailed and then murdered in prison for doing unspeakably bad things. But it was the second single that everybody knows. And if the first one was a 10 when it came to intensity, they dialed it down to about a 2 for this one. Its popularity started at alt-rock radio, and I'll be honest, for those working at the time, we did not get it. Everyone on staff hated this record, but it just kept growing and growing and growing. It somehow reached number 1 on the UK rock and metal charts at the same time. It was number 1 on the adult pop airplay charts. It was number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 in Canada, and top 15 in a dozen other countries around the world. The single sold 4 million copies in the US, again at the time of Napster and music piracy. Worldwide, about 6 million. It even sold 500,000 copies just as a ringtone. And it kept going. It showed up on an episode of Friends. It was used for the first dance at 1 million weddings, and it went viral on TikTok in 2021. So yeah, highly successful. 1.4 billion spins on Spotify as of February 2026. 1.2 million views on YouTube for a total of 1.44 billion. It has a one-hit wonder power ranking of 9.50. Have you got it yet? Yeah, it's Hoobastank.
That I just want you to know I found a reason for me to change who I used to be.
Hoobastank and The Reason, the title track of their second album released in December 2003. It dominated so much alt-rock radio airtime for the next year. And although Hoobastank keeps going, nothing they've done has been within a light year of that one song. Okay, we are finally ready for number 1. And when you hear it, you're going to go, of course. It is not only the biggest alt-rock one-hit wonder of the past 50 years, but it's also the truest of the breed for so many reasons. The guy behind this song is Wouter de Bakker. And hang on. He was born in Belgium, but raised in Australia. His first album came out in February 2003 and did pretty much nothing. His second album arrived in 2006 and made the top 15 in Australia, but was a stiff everywhere else. Wouter took a break and didn't put out another album for 5 years. The first single of this next album, his third, was released in November 2010, 8 months before the album, and it barely attracted any kind of attention. But then came the second single, July 5th, 2011, about 5 weeks ahead of the album called Making Mirrors. The song was a summary of some of Wouter's failed relationships. There's a sample taken from a 1967 instrumental by a Brazilian guitarist named Luiz Bonfa. There's another sample lifted from a 1961 British release entitled A Child's Introduction to the Instruments of the Orchestra. And if you listen closely, you'll see that it's based on the nursery rhyme Baa Baa Black Sheep, which can be dated all the way back to 1744. And you might also hear a little Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in it. To help with the vocals, Wooter brought in a New Zealand singer named Kimbra Johnson, who had some hit albums and singles of her own. Alt-rock radio got the song first, and from there, just wow. It reached number 1 on 25 official charts around the world, led by Canada, the US, and the UK. It was the most successful Australian song of the decade. Sales, in the era of streaming, sales are somewhere beyond 20 million copies. Now think about that. That's incredible. And 14 million of those sales came from the US alone. And then there were the album sales. They topped 3 million. And then Wooter disappeared. In other words, he got out on top. He knew when to quit. And as a result, he has never, ever had another hit. By design. And he's okay with that. This song blows away all the metrics we've been using for this one-hit wonder list. 2.4 billion Spotify plays, 2.6 billion YouTube views. As of February 2026, that's a total consumption number of 4.99 billion. And by the time you hear this, it has to be over 5 billion. It's the biggest one-hit wonder in the last 50 years of alt-rock. And there's nothing to do but to give it a power rating of 10.0 out of 10. Figured it out yet?
Let it go, and I wouldn't catch you hung up on somebody that you used to know.
You didn't have to cut me off. Make out like it never happened, but we were nothing. Now I don't even need your love, but you treat me like a
Gotye, the professional name of Wouter de Bakker and somebody I used to know. So, where's Gotye today? He's still making music, but only on the very indie level. He has a band called The Basics. He has his own record label called Forgotten Republic that focuses on up-and-coming indie artists. And he is completely happy being out of the mainstream. And get this, he could have monetized his YouTube channel. I mean, 2.6 billion streams would have brought in a lot, probably between, well, $2 and $3 million. But he didn't. He hates how we're always being bombarded with ads. He could have licensed somebody I used to know in a billion ways, movies, TV, commercials, but he hasn't. And I'm not done. 50% of the royalties from the song go to the estate of Luiz Bonfa, the Brazilian guitarist whom he sampled for Somebody I Used to Know. Instead, and this is a quote, he feels good where he left off. The success of this one song allows him to pursue creative things that he really cares about. None of this chasing commercial success business. He's good, thank you. And contrary to rumors, he's not dead. But no, he will never release music as Gotye ever again. Instead, he has the luxury of being able to do everything on his own terms forevermore. For him, it really is all about the music. All this makes Somebody I Used to Know the perfect one-hit wonder, not just in the history of alt-rock, but perhaps for all time. So we're done, right? That's the whole top 50 countdown, which means there's nowhere else to go. Well, not quite. Before I explain where we're going next, let's review the top 10 alt-rock one-hit wonders of all time. At number 10, Headstrong from Trapped. It's 99 Red Balloons from Nina at 9. Then it was Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal at 8, and Butterfly from Crazy Town at 7. Moving to number 6, it was You Get What You Give from New Radicals. 5 was Closing Time by Semisonic. And at number 4, I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles from the Proclaimers. The top 3, Teenage Dirtbag from Wheatus, The Reason from Hoobastank at 2, and the number 1 song on this list, Somebody I Used to Know by Gotye. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the show, this particular episode, I said this was episode 5 of 6 of a 5-part series. Okay, so if we've reached number 1, what could possibly come next? Well, I want to highlight some alt-rock one-hit wonders that didn't make the top 50 list because either A, their Spotify and YouTube numbers fell outside our established criteria, but I think still need to be acknowledged. They may not be the biggest alt-rock one-hit wonders of all time, but they kind of feel like they should be, you know? And B, and this is on me, it's a bit embarrassing, there are a few songs that should have made this list, but I discovered them after everything was all done and the whole thing was in production. So we're going to call the next 10 one-hit wonders an erratum, an addendum, an appendix. So what were those songs? Maybe they're the ones you had in mind and you've been yelling at your radio or your podcast device since the beginning of this episode. Whatever they are, we'll find out next time. Meanwhile, you can review the top 50 list via podcasts. They're available everywhere you can download a podcast. Just search for The Ongoing History of New Music and you'll find them and hundreds more. And since you're in the download mode, look for my other podcast, Uncharted Crime and Mayhem in the Music Industry. That's where I talk about the intersection of true crime and music. We can meet up at my website, which is a journalofmusicalthings.com. It's updated every single day. Make sure you get the free daily newsletter, and we'll probably run into each other in all the social media platforms. Finally, if you'd like to yell at me about anything, use alan@alancross.ca. And please don't worry, I can take it. See you next time for the finale of this whole alt-rock one-hit wonders project. Technical productions by Rob Johnston. I'm Alan Cross.